guys, it's Boki here from Gigi's Fabric Shop and Juki Junkies, and today's video is going to be about what accessories you should be using on your TL machine when working with vinyl and other sticky synthetic type of materials. So stay tuned in this video. I'm not only going to be showing you how to use these accessories, but how to use them and why you should be using them, breaking it down and giving you those helpful tips that'll apply to the beginner and to the person that's experienced as well, because you may learn something you didn't know before. So let's get to it. So the couple accessories that we're going to be diving in today is going to be one, which we probably haven't showcased before. This is going to be the roller foot. So this foot has little rollers on the bottom, and we'll dive more deep into this foot when we get to it. So this will be the first one we're going to talk about. The second one we're going to be talking about is the smooth presser foot. So it's very, very smooth, kind of like a non-stick pan. Next, we're going to have the walking foot. We're going to be talking about how this plays when you work with synthetic materials. And then last but not least, I did want to talk about having some sort of guide when you are working with synthetic materials, because if you don't know, with synthetic materials, once the hole is there, it's there forever. So it's kind of nice to have one of these. So let's dive into each one of these. We're going to start off first with the roller foot, but before I do that, I'm going to grab some vinyl. I'm going to show you how vinyl works with just a regular metal foot like the one that you have on your machine. So we'll see that first so we can start comparing it. All right, so the first foot we're going to start with is just the regular standard metal feet that you probably have on your machine. Could be the standard presser foot. Right now I have the hinged 1/4 inch foot on my machine, and just to let you guys know, we will be talking about needles as well, so stay tuned for that, because that is also very important along with your accessories. So here I have a little bit of a gray faux leather that I'm going to fold into 3. And this is going to be a perfect example of what to expect. We're going to be talking about presser foot pressure, but what to expect when you work with a metal foot. You see how it's pulling on the fabric. This also goes hand in hand with presser foot pressure, and look what it's doing to that vinyl. Not to mention that if you were going to do straps, you would have 4 layers. So look what happened. It kind of turned it into like a fortune cookie. So let's talk about how to avoid this. Let's start first with presser foot pressure and then the accessories. One thing I do want to note before we start talking about adjusting your presser foot pressure is, you guys, feel free to take your time while I'm doing this video. I know it may seem like a lot of information at once, especially if you're a beginner, but just feel free to grab a pen and paper, take your notes, fast forward, rewind, really take it at your own pace, because all this information is really important. So don't expect it to stick after watching this video just one time. Take your time, take your notes, and review them so you have them always by your side. So presser foot pressure is the first thing I want to talk about before we even start diving into accessories, really, because this has a lot to do with that curling that we saw in that vinyl. So that was just 3 layers of vinyl. So this is your presser foot pressure window. This actually opens and you'll see the little blue spring there. But let's talk about kind of standard settings. So when we test our machines here before the machines go to a customer, we do like to set the tension or the presser foot pressure anywhere from the middle dot to a little above the middle dot. That's kind of like standard presser foot pressure for piecing, with cottons and things like that. But when you start working with denser materials like vinyl, for instance, there's going to be, you have to control the pressure. So this has nothing to do with the clearance that is in the machine. So like when you put the presser foot down, this has nothing to do with the space between the feed dogs and the actual foot. This is just how much pressure is being applied. So is it going to apply 1 dumbbell of pressure or 2 dumbbells of pressure? So this is just how heavy it's pushing down. So you have to relieve some of your presser foot pressure when you're working with vinyl to help with that curling. So you could put it anywhere from like 1 notch from the top. That's kind of where you should be when you're working with your walking foot, is like right here. Okay, when you're free motion quilting as well. So keeping it anywhere right here when you're working with those bulky layers of vinyl is going to help with not having the fabric curl so much. So that's step number 1 before we start diving into the accessories. Let's just do a little sample sew with, now that we've adjusted the presser foot pressure. Same variables here, same vinyl, same foot, and we also have 3 layers of vinyl. So let's just see how the machine reacts. You can already see that the curling has drastically changed, but now we are presented with a new problem. We're presented with very tight stitches. I have the machine set at over a 3, and you can see that the stitches are very, very tight here, and that comes back to us working with that metal foot. What's happening here is there's a lot of traction between the material and the foot, and it's sticking to these coated materials, and it may be worse or less of an issue with the different types of synthetic materials that you're working with. But when I say synthetic materials, I'm talking about cork, faux leather, even genuine leather, clear vinyls, anything like that, anything sticky, waxed canvas, anything that kind of once the hole is there. So now let's put on the roller foot and see how that helps this out. Right, so the roller foot's right here, and I just have a little side-by-side from the metal foot that I have on the machine prior to this, and this is the one we're going to be putting on. Something I do want to note before we get too far into the video is that this roller foot is a not authentic Juki part. So I know that sounds a little scary. We tried our best to sell all things Juki authentic, but unfortunately Juki just doesn't make all the accessories that would be practical for us in our sewing. So we do a lot of product testing before we present you any items that are not authentic Juki. So we have tested this product to make sure it approves our liking, okay? So automatically you can see side by side that this has 2, 4, 6 wheels on the bottom that actually spin. Okay, they actually spin. So it's like a little race car. So it just glides right across the fabric. And whereas this foot has nothing and all it can do is stick to the material, right? So this is going to be a very helpful tool to use with synthetic materials. It's kind of like the walking foot for those synthetic things. It's going to glide over top of those stickier materials. Another thing to keep in mind is this is going to be really practical if you work with any sort of textured types of materials, meaning like an ostrich faux leather or like an alligator leather, something that has like texture to it. This is going to do much better than, like, let's say the Teflon foot, because it is able to kind of grab it and push it through with those wheels. So let's go ahead and put this on and see how it does. So now that we have that on, again, all variables have really stayed the same. I did put my stitch length to be just a little bit more. I put it to be like a 3.5 or maybe like a 3 3/4, because I mean, for top stitching on vinyl, that's a really good top stitch length. So now let's give it a try. Same type of faux leather, and we have 3 layers. So let's see how this does. And you can automatically see that the stitches have become elongated, okay? And then here you can see that they are very, very tight. And I only increased the stitch length about like a 1/2 of a notch. So what changed here? What happened? The roller foot was able to push through that material a lot smoother instead of sticking to it like this foot did. So that's the difference here, okay? This is going to be awesome for working with vinyls, textured vinyls, but how does this foot compare to the vinyl foot? Let's talk about this one next. Now we got all 3 next to one another, and you'll see that this is the smooth foot. It's a white non-stick type of material, what we kind of all tend to call Teflon. So this is what's going to resemble kind of like your non-stick pans at home. This is going to work exceptionally well with sticky types of synthetic materials. There's also a spring in the back that I like to reference because this is what's going to help surf over those different types of weights as well. Whereas the roller foot also does have a spring back here too, so that's an extra nice support to mention, okay? So this foot, as you can see a little side by side, it's a white plastic. This is still metal. And then this is still just the regular foot. And all these feet will be available to you in the description down below on JukiJunkies.com. So if you are ready to purchase both of these, go ahead and check the description. Okay, so I have the smooth foot now on the machine. So we're gonna see how it reacts to these 3 layers of that same exact faux leather that we were using. Another thing I'd like to mention is, how does this foot differentiate from this foot? Like, how would you know when to use what foot? And my best answer to you, and it's not just my sales pitch, I would have both in my stash. If you are a bag maker, you're gonna wanna have as many tools as possible to help you with bag making, just because every bag has different sets of variables and different materials and things like that. So one might work better than another, and the other might help on another day on a different project. So I would just have both on hand, because you never know when one is gonna kind of save the day, so to speak. So let's go ahead and sew on this one. And I can see so far just from sewing, this one has done the best with the puckering. All right, so let's go ahead and cut that. Beautifully nice defined stitches here. We'll talk about needles as well, because changing out my needles is gonna help my definition here, but let's just do a little side by side. So here we have the smooth foot, okay? Here we have the roller foot, so you can already tell more definition. Look at that, so more definition. So what does that lead me to believe? That the smooth foot is gonna do better on maybe thicker materials, like when you do straps, okay? And then here was just the regular metal foot. So see how the stitches already started getting longer, more defined, less curling. This is the smoothest and straightest piece, where this one had a little bit of curling, and this one had obviously the most curling and then the other one was like a little crescent cookie before we adjusted the presser foot pressure. So that's a great thing to see. Now let's talk about the walking foot and why you would use that, and a couple things to keep in mind. The walking foot, there's kind of a little bit of a debacle around the walking foot when working with vinyl and things like that, because people will say that they get imprints on their fabric, where the imprints really don't usually come from the top of the walking foot. If you'll notice that the feed dogs on this machine, on this walking foot, these are actually plastic, okay? The imprints that you see on your vinyl are gonna come from the feed dogs. And in a later date, we're gonna have another video where we talk about the different types of accessories, like optional techniques and tools to help with working with vinyl, where right now we're really focusing on accessories, so keep your eye out for that. That's why you wanna make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel when that does come out. So we're gonna go ahead and install this walking foot and talk about how this kind of acts with vinyl and things to look out for. When you are working with your walking foot on vinyl type of projects, faux leather type of projects, cork and all that good stuff, to avoid imprints, the best rule of thumb I can give you is always do a sample sew out. So obviously the thicker your projects get, the more likely you are to have imprints. Obviously play with your presser foot pressure, and if you have the Juki TL 18 QVP at home, feel free to loosen up your micro lifter a little bit to help with not having such a tight space between those thicker materials. But my best word of advice is going to be simply do a test sew off, okay? So an instance when you could use the walking foot and it would make life a little bit easier, obviously the walking foot is designed to have a set of feed dogs on the top and a set of feed dogs on the bottom, so that way they're both always working in conjunction to push the material through the machine, right? So when you're doing that top stitch finishing on a bag, to avoid any type of imprints, like I said, most of the imprints come from the bottom, not so much the top. So if you were doing some sort of top stitching on a bag and you had cotton on the inside, that would be a good time to do it. A time where I'd probably avoid doing the walking foot is if you had a thicker project where you're doing vinyl on the top and the bottom, just because that way, you know, you're a higher risk of putting imprints. Always do that test sample, and then I do have future tips in the future on how to make that a little bit easier for you. So right now I just have 2 layers of this faux leather that I was working with, and this is gonna really help feed that through, okay, without a problem. Going to do its job. And of course, I'm going to have beautifully defined stitches. I have no problem front and back. I mean, it just looks exceptional. There's like no curling at all. And notice here that there's no imprints. So it'd be interesting to see how much material that I have to put there for it to start getting some imprints. But the walking foot's really going to be the best when you have not vinyl on the top and the bottom. Maybe just try to do where there's cotton on the bottom, or if you're just doing like a couple layers and then you're working on the side that's softer and lined, or you have an interfacing, that would be a practical time to work with your walking foot, but always do that test sample. All right, so the next one we want to talk about is seam guides. I feel like that was kind of important to mention. I particularly like the swing gauge for my bag makers. In an earlier video that we did, I did all the different types of accessories I would recommend for bag makers, and this made it in that video. And the reason I prefer or recommend some sort of seam guide for you guys is because when you are working with vinyl, once the hole is there, it's there, right? There's no repairing it. It's not a woven type of material where you can kind of stretch the fibers out a little bit, scratch them off, and the holes are gone. The hole is there, it's there forever, especially if you work with genuine leather and things like that. So having accuracy, especially when you're top stitching, is gonna be nice. And in bag making, you'll tend to notice that you fluctuate a lot through different types of seam allowances. So like, this is a 2-in-1 type of seam, seam that you could set a guide. So first off, when you put the screws in to hold this part of the swing gauge, you can set this to a seam allowance. So let's say I was to set this one to about a half, which would be, I'm eyeballing it of course, but let's say I set this one to half. All right, I would tighten these down once I have it to my happy place. All right, and that would hold this in position. And then the next one, this has another screw right here that loosens, and then this is adjustable. So for my second one, let's say I needed something to really help get a 1/4 of an inch, of course, or if you were working with like a narrow zipper foot or something to help you get a really nice consistent top stitch. But a 1/4 inch would be good for me here. I can fasten this down, and this would stay at a 1/4 of an inch. And then if I needed to go back to a 1/2 an inch, I would just swing it out the way and swing this back when I needed it. So this is why I recommend this one for my bag makers, because accuracy here is really important. of course, because there's no going back on vinyl, right? Once it's there, it's there. So I would highly recommend this one. There are other options like the magnetic gauge, which looks something like this, where it just magnets onto the machine. And then of course there's a T-screw or a T-shape guide, which maybe we could do a video on those one day too. So I highly recommend these. So now let's talk about needles, because that's just as important as the tools. Okay, so needles, all right? So here I kind of put exactly what we just did, our little science experiment of our little crescent cookie, and then a little bit straighter, and then the best stitch result there. So that's just kind of an overview of what we just did. So now let's talk about needles, okay? So needles with synthetic materials are really, really important. It's gonna be definition, it's going to be, you know, avoiding skip stitches, and there's a couple different types of needles you can use, okay? So let's start off first with the super non-stick needle. This is probably going to be your best bet when you're working with clear vinyls, jelly vinyls, anything really, really sticky. Those tend to be the stickiest types of materials. This is also going to be nice if you're somebody who works with like adhesive tapes, like double-sided tapes, or any types of stabilizers, even waxed canvas. This is going to be great because waxiness can cause, you know, buildup on the needle and things like that. So anything that can cause buildup or a very sticky material, your non-stick needles are made out of literally basically what this wood is made out of. They put it on a needle. They put a similar kind of coating on the needle to help sticking. Okay, so that's what that would be used for. A variety of different sizes all come back to what type of thread you're using and how dense your project is. Next up on the spectrum, we got leather needles. So leather needles, by definition, are what to be used on leather, artificial leathers, and heavy non-woven synthetic materials, like we've been talking about this whole video. It has a cut point on the needle, so what that's designed to do is to cut through the synthetic materials. It's not recommended to use on knits or wovens, obviously, because you'll just shred through those fibers. So this could be another great option for somebody who's working with a genuine light pliable leather on this machine, or is working with, you know, faux leathers or corks or anything like that. There's not a right or wrong here. You just got to decide what works best for you. It depends on each project. So this is another great needle to use when working with synthetic materials and especially genuine leather. The next one I want to talk about is the Microtex needle. This is an extra sharp needle. So talking about cutting through those synthetic materials that are not woven, this is what this needle is designed to do. It's an extra sharp needle. The point is as pointy as it gets. So a sharp needle is used for microfibers. This can even be used on polyesters and silks, foils, faux leathers, coated materials, and even batiks. It has a very, very acute point that helps with beautiful top stitching and creates straight stitches on quilt piecing as well. So this can be used a little bit more versatile. Like this can be used on batiks as well, because those go through a different type of dyeing process. But something to note about these needles is that they don't go up very high in size because they're not recommended to be used on thick materials. So like if you were making maybe a wallet with like 2 layers of cork or leather or something like that, this would probably be your best route for the most defined stitches because it's not super thick. This needle doesn't get bigger than a 90-14, and that's simply because the point is too sharp. It's literally just going to break, okay? Now the last needle, I saved the best for last. The top stitch needles are my go-to needle, and I've saved so many people from skip stitches with this exact needle. So top stitch needles are very unique and can be used for a wide variety of sewing, not just leathers, vinyls, corks, but also in the quilting world, so cottons and things like that. So this is great for bag makers because you could be using with cotton on the lining. Smedge top stitch needles, these needles have an extra long eye used for top stitching heavy, multiple, or even poor quality threads. So very versatile needle. Like I was explaining this to David before this video, is that top stitch needles are known for their extra large eye. So their eye is almost double in size compared to these guys right here. And what's the most common thing we do when we have skip stitches, right? When you start experiencing skip stitches, we go up in needle size. And why is that? That's because when you go up in needle size, the eye gets larger. And that's what we think is going to do it, right? Going up in size. But it's the issue is that the top thread and the bottom thread aren't connecting. So, and that comes down to the size of the eye, because the eye is what's creating the loop in the machine. So this is going to help with those skip stitches that you're experiencing, especially when you're making straps and things like that. And this does go up pretty high in size too. So this is a great option for anyone who has issues with top stitching, straps, bags, free motion quilting, anything like that. This kind of is my save all needle that saved a lot of people. And that is that. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something new out of it. And now for the fun part, we're doing our giveaway time. Before I tell you guys how to join the giveaway, if you are interested in any of these accessories that I just showed down below, there's going to be links in the description for you guys, but you can also go to jukijunkies.com and access any of these parts right on our website. All right, so make sure you check that out in that. And also, I just want to let you guys know that, not to toot our own horn, but we ship pretty quick around here. So we get your orders out like usually within 24 hours, unless it's placed on a Friday, because we're not here on Saturday and Sunday. But your orders go out quick, y'all. So definitely don't hesitate, because you'll see your parts here very soon. I know it can be very exciting. So giveaway time, how to enter the giveaway. So today's giveaway is going to be a little bit fun. It's more personalized. So you're going to get to pick one of the feet that I showed you here today, and one of the needles. So how you can join the giveaway is all you have to do is comment down below. You can say, you know, spread some love, spread some kindness, tell me what you loved about this video, tell me what you want to see next, but you got to tell me that you are done with the giveaway. So make sure you comment and say, done, I've entered, I did everything I needed to do. The second thing you're going to have to do is like the video. Okay, very important. You got to like the video, and you get extra brownie points if you subscribe. And then 3 is you have to share the video to somebody. So share it to your friend, share it to your Facebook stream, share it to via text message, whatever makes you happy. But we do want to spread the knowledge out there, so that way there's a lot of smart sewists out there. All right, so thank you guys once again for watching this video. Make sure you like it and subscribe to our channel, because we are posting every Sunday. See you soon.